Unreasonable business owner loses a customer. So, I own a few residential properties. I used to maintain them myself, but I have a small business that needs my constant attention, so I hired a property management company to maintain the properties. Property management companies handle everything: fix anything broken, screen the tenants before moving in, evict them if they don't pay rent, etc., while I just collect my rent money, minus their little reasonable fee they take every month. When I chose this company, who I'll call SPM for Shitty Property Management Company, they seem to be a very good company. Local, been established for a while, nice people, etc. I needed help marketing my properties and getting good tenants moved in, so I chose them. While most of my properties were vacant at the time, I did have a few occupied, and one tenant living in my higher-end condo property, and he was my favorite tenant, who we'll call FT. I screened him and approved him myself before I hired SPM. He was a very good tenant and he rented from me for 3 years, which is a long time and a great thing for landlords. Paid rent on time, made repairs himself without deducting rent, didn't smoke, etc. I ended up getting to know him because he wanted to buy the condo and he was a great tenant, so we became very good friends. Once I hired SPM, I had to inform my existing tenants that everything from now on would be handled by SPM and that they would need to sign a new lease. All tenants complied and everything was pretty good for about a year, just collecting my money with no issue. However, my designated representative from SPM kept changing almost every 3 months, it seemed like, which I should have noticed. But I had a lot more properties at this point and ended up becoming one of SPM's favorite property owners. Because of the sum of the higher rent properties, they made more money with me. They always praised how they loved doing business with me. FT lost his job for a couple months, but he still managed to pay rent. I really appreciated that because when a tenant moves out, it's pretty costly for me, especially with this property. Not many people in this area would easily qualify for this property, so you can imagine how glad I was to find this good tenant. Well, for the month of March, which is 2 months after FT gets a new job, FT's rent check for March bounces because of an issue with his bank's overdraft. The maid showed it went through for a couple days before it was returned. FT has never had any sort of trouble paying rent whatsoever. My payment from SPM included FT's payment, so both me and FT had no idea of this issue, until SPM notifies him of the issue about a week after the check itself bounces. So in total, it was about half a month since FT dropped off his payment. Rent for April was about to be due, so he's just now being notified about the bounced check. The check that SPM waited a week to deposit and waited another week to call FT and let him know the check bounced. So you can imagine that it's pretty hard for FT to suddenly come up with the money to pay rent and pay next month's rent. Sure enough, he can't, which I'm understanding about at first. How does SPM handle this situation? They give him only 24 hours to pay the rent in certified funds, or they would file a worthless check complaint with the state attorney's office. Where I live, a worthless check would be a felony charge that my tenant would be facing and could face prison time if convicted. FT tried to do whatever he could to get SPM to work with him so he could get a little extra time to come up with the money, but they wouldn't budge at all. The nasty accounting lady told him, "You committed a felony. This is policy and we have to report it. Come up with the money by tomorrow or we file charges." First of all, I know the laws. SPM should have started the eviction process like they were supposed to, which would have given FT a few days to come up with the money. A bounced check is still unpaid rent, so they should have followed this procedure. The section lease that states the return check policy says nothing about them filing criminal charges. So I'm completely unaware of all of this, until SPM calls me and says FT is moving out because his lease was up so he wasn't renewing. So I call FT to wish him the best and thank him for his long tenancy. He tells me everything SPM decided to pull as I described above. This gets me pretty mad at the same time. I'm confused why FT didn't just call me in the first place. So I call my contact at SPM and get transferred to SPM bitch accountant. So the conversion goes like this. Me, in a distressed tone. "Okay, what the hell? This is a good paying tenant I've had for 3 years and never had a single problem with until now. Why are you threatening criminal charges? Bitch," in a bitchy tone of voice. "A worthless check is a felony. He committed a felony. This is our policy." Sorry, me. "No, you need to follow the eviction process and give him the standard 3 days to cure the unpaid rent. It's his right. He has someone that's going to loan him the money in a few days." Bitch. "Doesn't matter. The check bounced, ET, is a felony. Like I'm some fucking moron. It's our policy and we will prosecute if he doesn't pay by tomorrow." Bitch. Doesn't matter, the check bounced. It is a felony, like I'm some fucking moron. It's our policy, and we will prosecute if he doesn't pay by tomorrow. Now I'm pretty furious. Me. Let me fucking tell you something. This sounds like extortion. If you file that fucking charge, you will have a problem with me. I'm not losing a perfectly good tenant who fell on hard times over this shit.
Bitch. Don't curse at me. I will not be cursed at. We're filing the charges if there's no payment tomorrow. I tell her some more explicit words and hang up. So now I'm playing the waiting game. FT is so distraught, he decided to move in with his parents with plans to forfeit his security deposit to repay SPM, which I'm fine with because SPM already mistakenly paid me, and he technically owed them at this point. April comes around, and I noticed that my rent payment had a deduction from when they mistakenly paid me, so SPM has their money back, and now I'm the one that's out $2,200. So now I email SPM to see what's going on, reminding them they needed to forfeit FT's entire security deposit to reimburse me for the lost rent. SPM then tells me over email that the security deposit is FT's money, and they have to give it back to him only. Total bullshit. So I will be paid when they get the money from the state attorney, as they've kept their word on filing the charges.
I ask why and how they were going to collect the money to refresh my memory. So SPM's rep explains to me over email the whole thing, how he didn't come up with the money in 24 hours, felony, our policy, etc. So now I have everything documented in email of how they used extortion on my tenant instead of following the eviction process. I don't argue, even though I'm pretty furious finding out they still filed the charge on who's now my friend when I was willing to take the loss. So now I'm extremely furious and go down to their office unannounced. I encountered accounting bitch again, told her I wanted to talk with the owner. Her response was, "If this about the whole situation with FT, you're not seeing him." I told her that's going to be a problem because I'm pulling all my properties away and switching property management companies, so I needed the keys and paperwork. Eyes widened, and her voice went from bitch to shaky. Now, the owner sits down with me and desperately tries to get me to reconsider. I highlighted what they did was unacceptable, against state laws, and they needed to drop the charges. He wouldn't do it, saying he can't because it's policy again. Told him that's bullshit because he doesn't technically owe them money. He owes me, and I'm taking the loss. Still nothing, so I take my keys to all properties and cut all ties. But they didn't drop it for whatever reason. So now I'm on fire. I wanted to see what other trouble they've been in, so I ended up doing a little research in the county's court records. Sure enough, SPM has been sued for shitty management before and had to pay $20,000 to an apartment complex that sued them. So I contact my lawyer, who helped me when I bought my first investment property, explained everything that happened, and we ended up having a meeting. We ended up taking SPM to court and filing a Board of Realtors complaint, notifying the board that SPM was being sued for their actions. To add the cherry on top, we requested the same judge who oversaw SPM's previous lawsuit. Lo and behold, there's the same judge on the stand, and he isn't pleased to see the owner's face again. They were found guilty of extortion, violating tenant rights, and in violation of many real estate laws. Judge rules the following: worthless check charge against FT, dismissed $15,000 in damages to FT for extortion, $10,000 to me for damages and attorney fees, $8,000 court, fine for extortion, business licensing and real estate license revoked. So now SPM is done, and the owner can no longer practice real estate again. All because they decided to be stubborn and not be ethical. To my understanding, there is another criminal case for extortion against the owner, but I haven't kept tabs on that. The office they were once in is now vacant and being offered for rent by another realtor. FT bought a house. He may be involved with the other case, but not sure. I sold a good amount of my properties and hired an actual person to manage the properties I have remaining.